And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the series of workshops in mode. Today, we're invited by some special project that I'm excited to present here because I know the ramifications and the things that you can build after you see this video are going to be great. Hey, Ale. Hey, Raul. How are you guys doing?
Hey, nice to see you again.
Hello.
Thanks
So
for having
I,
us.
I like starting with some introductions. Ale, can you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yeah, I'm Ale. I take care of, I would say, the business side of things at Brahma and some product. And yeah, I mean, the team has been together for over 2 years now. And yeah, and we built out console that we'll show you.
Love it. Raul?
Hi, I'm Rahul, and I basically focus more on the backend side of console, and together we just build and push console for the best UX.
Nice. So if anything is not working at any point, we need to go complain with Raul, right? If at any point we find issues.
He's the one that gets in all the bug tickets. Absolutely. Unwillingly.
Great, awesome. Well, with those intros, I'm Fede, by the way, I'm head of Development Mode. So we're here in this workshop series to educate all our community with the amazing infra tooling that we have in our ecosystem and cool things that you can build with it. So Ale, if you're okay with it, I'll show you a screen and we can start checking out the product. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. There we go.
So yeah, I'll give you a run through console. I think it's good to see the product before Rahul dives a bit more into what can be built with it and how it works technically. But essentially, console is what we call an integrated account. What does that means is that not only we give you a very good interface for accessing DeFi multi-chain natively and kind of doing operation on all the chains, but we also let you essentially experience some backend services that allow for your transactions to be very smooth, connecting to that to be smooth, and everything in between. So I think the most important things to see are that you have this smart account that supports, a private key. It can be upgraded over time, and it can be basically programmed to do different things. I'll just show you a couple of things that you can do. So the most obvious things are that you can, for example, swap directly in the app, and you have sort of a meta aggregator with different routes for each chain. Depending on the chain, we have more. So for example, on Arbitrum, we would have 7 routes you can choose from. We have a direct lending integration where you can basically supply and borrow from Aave, for example, directly. We're also working for something like that for Mode, where you can basically build a transaction which has many steps into one. But the most important thing is, going multi-chain using different application, it should feel smooth and it should feel the same no matter the chain you're on. And that's what we focus on. And one of the things that Raul will dive very deep in this workshop about is strategies and automations. So what automations are essentially are ways to sign something now, like a transaction that you would like to be executed in the future. So in the case of a TWAP, which is probably something simple to explain, you can say, I want to buy or sell an asset to another, and you can basically choose a duration and say, okay, I want to sell it over hours, days, whatever, and I want it to trigger without me being here, correct? So you can say over the next 2 months, buy ETH every week, for example. And this can be done non-custodially thanks to the automation architecture of Console, which allows for your smart account to give basically automation requests to a third party, that it can be anybody. Right now it's Brahma for the TWAP, but in the future, and very soon actually, we're opening up an API where devs can build on and build automation experiences for users of Console and their users that will then show up here, essentially. And apart from that, we also have a whole way to connect to dApps, which is pretty streamlined. So instead of having to, for example, use Wallet Connect, you can actually connect directly to a dApp and load it inside of your console securely. So as you could see, number one, I can search dApp by name. I can do this multi-chain as well, just switching and seeing the dApps present on a chain. I can also start and do transactions directly from here, essentially. And that's what's powerful. We allow people to basically choose the transaction that they want to do. And we allow them to prepare this transaction and sign them all in one go. So instead of having to now sign this approval to then go back to Ionic and supply, I can actually prepare both the approval and the supply together so that I can sign them all in one go. This is particularly important for like users such as, multi-sig like operators. So we have funds, we have protocol treasuries, and we also have whales of any type that have a multi-sig account. So instead of having to, let's say, sign different transaction in multiple, sign and then wait, they can basically prepare it and sign it all together in one go. So this is a generalized approach for Console to do things, and this can be, integrated with any dApp that has very basic logic on chain, and it doesn't require Brahma to basically directly integrate a provider or an application. Correct? It can basically work out of the box. I guess this is something that we surface in different ways in the dApp. One is to just connect to a dApp and basically try it out. And one is to prepare some pre-made functions that you can use in the app itself. So for example, what I showed you for lending and strategies. Whenever you sign something in a console, whether it's a swap or a send or whatever, so let's take, for example, a send. Let's say I wanted to send, 5 USDC out of my mode console, and I would want to send it to the owner. I can directly build a transaction in a builder on the site where I can read what I'm about to do, whether it's a swap, a transaction on a protocol. We let you simulate it. We let you see what you're about to sign, the cost. And when you sign the transaction, instead of normally having to, now you don't see my EOA that popped up, instead of normally having to pay the gas by yourself, estimating the right gas amount, and handling a transaction in case it fails, the Brahma architecture does all of this for you. And this is pretty good because it allows you to basically reliably execute any complexity of transaction in any type of situation on chain, right? Maybe there's a gas spike, or basically gas is very expensive and there's a lot of transaction. We handle that for you with our backend. So the most important thing of Console is not only we serve and build a very good UI to do things, but we also build the backend services that ensure that execution is pretty smooth and fast, no matter what the chain is. So also like things like bridging, for example, you can bridge directly, directly from here without having to connect to an exterior bridge. You can get your quotes directly, and basically will let you do things very easily and securely. And the interface is obviously built by us, maintained by Brahma. It supports also some more complex use cases from these more institutional users, which are, for example, having sub-accounts. And what sub-accounts allow to do is to basically build segregated accounts in which you have security separate from your main account. So say you want to try a new dApp, say you want to collaborate with some friends where you want to put some rules or what can be done in a sub-account, or inside a fund or a DAO, you want a specific threshold of signature for specific functions. All of these are supported by Console. And you can do this by just deploying a sub-account. You can say create a sub-account, and you can say this is our mode workshop investment account. And you can basically choose different people from your address book to be operating on this account. And by default, these addresses can only sign transaction, but they cannot change the ownership and do any admin level stuff. So this is how you build a sub-account, right? And then once you have a sub-account, you can then, if you want, add extra policies on top of it to restrict its operation. So for example, you can say, okay, which addresses can funds be sent to, which assets can be basically used on the sub-account, and which protocols as well can be used. So in the case of whatever protocol you want to use on mode, you're able, for example, to input a custom contract address. You're able to also allow this protocol to be used with any asset in the sub-account or only with whitelisted asset. And why this is important is because you can create this sort of logic in which different people in your organization can do different things. So that's very important. And the coolest part is that because we build both the backend that supports these transactions and we build the front end to interact with the dApps, this allows you to do, to expose this stack for people to build applications on top of it. And I guess that's what Rahul is going to talk about, where a developer can basically say, okay, I want to build an automation that opens a landing position on Ionic and maintains it for the user with a health factor of whatever the user sets. And so the dev could build the automation, and all they have to take care about is triggering the action whenever it has to trigger, right? Rebalancing the position, increasing or decreasing leverage, without having to think of, oh, the security of building a smart contract to host the funds of the users. Oh, the permissions, right? How do I ensure and show to the user that I can only do certain operation on their funds? And also the management of these funds, correct? If you have a vault and you have to manage it, a smart contract vault, you have to think about how to trigger the transaction, how to execute it based on gas, correct? Which keepers to use, and overall how to get unstuck a transaction or execute a sequence of transactions that have to be done together. Console handles all of the execution part, all of the permission of the users with the sub-account construct, while it allows the dev to only think about the logic of the automation and this app. We can call it an app. And what we serve to the user out of a transaction is everything from which information, what permission they're giving to the automator or to the transaction they're signing by decoding it. And we explain, in this case, that you've wrapped some if, you did an approval, and you operated on a protocol. Depending on the protocol, how known it is, if our database has seen it before and basically mapped it, we might have more or less context. So for example, on Arbitrum, we've been there for a long time. And for example, Aave, we have a full idea of what's happening, correct? And with Mode, we're building it over time based on the protocol frequency, the usage, and so on. So I would say this is like the general idea of Console. Where this becomes powerful is automating transaction in a programmable way, both for developers or the users, programming access rights, which we saw with sub-accounts, and basically having different multi-sig threshold, being able to separate your positions and your operation per account, and accessing dApps and navigating multi-chain, as you can see, like switching from using a dApp on Arbitrum and opening it to opening a dApp on Mode is literally one click, which is super important. And building transactions that have many steps to sign them all in one go, it is possible to be done on Brahma Connect, which is obviously very powerful as well, which just takes one click to load the dApp and open it up inside of your console. And then basically you can prepare your transaction by clicking around without having to understand completely how this works, essentially. So that's I would say. That's the, let's say, general run through Console at the UI level. And yes, and thanks to the amount of, let's say, usage that we're aggregating between different chains and making it very easy for people to bridge and try things and use chains, we also aim to bring good rewards across the ecosystem. So we have really good rewards both across Mode, Arbitrum. We used to have good rewards across Blast, and soon we will be rewarding directly from Brahma for specific usage of things such as automations and so on. But this is a general run through the product, essentially.
This is great. General and very specific as well. Like you showed a lot of like useful things here. And I do have a small question before we hop on to Rahul, and that is, you mentioned this is a great tool for DAO treasuries, for whales, for different use cases where a lot of people need to get together and perform maybe complex actions, and this makes it easier, yes, simpler, and more secure. But I also see, and I'm really happy to see like what would be small details regarding security that are really good for the end user as well. So what you mentioned about being able to separate your personal wallet where you mint NFTs and maybe do some social interactions versus your portfolio one, and actually a wallet where you can do DeFi, and even more so, being able to automate these flows with clicks, not needing to know how to code. I think that's really powerful as well. So for end users as well, as you mentioned, and the things that you've shown, I think it's great because at Mode, you know that we want to bring DeFi easier and make it easier for the users and make this on-chain finance. So tools like this, I think, allow us to be more flexible on the types of new innovative projects that we have. and be more secure with it, because like just only having the connect the apps there with the official websites, it's already a big plus not to fall in a scam just Googling for website or stuff. So there's a lot of details that bring more security to users that I love seeing here.
Yeah, and I think like our approach was to build first for power users, we can call it, and more like organizations, because let's say the biggest value add that we can directly bring was that. But realistically, the over a year and a half of building we took to put this all together, not only what you see but everything that runs in the background, allows us to then build micro experiences for different type of users, correct? So slowly we will be moving toward the retail user, where I'll give you an example. This is not retail, this is still power user, okay? This is something we're launching on Arbitrum, but it will come on mode very similarly for Ironclad. So on Aave, correct, we allow you to open up a position, a leverage position, which normally takes multiple transaction, correct? Looping to actually long a token, or basically arbitrage a rate, correct? To earn a bit more on your savings. We allow you to build this position directly in one single click, correct? So this would be a negative position probably because DAI is high, but let's say you wanted to borrow DAI on leverage of 1.7x. We essentially allow you to directly build this position and prepare it in one transaction. So this is going from, let's say, building your transaction with Brahma Connect that I showed you, or like the general using of dApps, how you would normally do, and shortening a bit of the time needed in terms of one signature instead of 10. Now we're going into the opening this up to developers, letting them build this type of custom experiences, so that not only us, with our time, we can build automations or templates for mode, but we can open up to developers with an easy API, and they can say, hey, I want to build this leverage template or automation for mode. How do I do it? And basically you can serve it to mode users on console, or even to mode users directly, correct? And we're going in its direction, where if then this has to become more retail friendly, and this has to be the only thing they see, even in a simpler format, we can, because the rest of the work has been done, correct? The analytics are there, the ability to spin up sub-accounts for the automation and add a policy and allow somebody to trigger are there. The the UI to propose an automation built by somebody and allow the user to subscribe to it, simulate it, and all of that is possible. And that's why we can build soon even those type of experiences more towards the retail, if it makes sense.
Yeah. So hearing you say this, and Raul is eager to jump in, so we'll give him his time soon. He wants to share the knowledge, man. I really want to see what he has for us. So what you're saying here, if I'm a builder, so we have the upcoming super hack, right? We're sponsoring one of the super chain hackathons that's coming soon for mode, and we're asking a lot for. We have DeFi bounties, DeFi cross with AI, and also UI UX, great UI UX in DeFi. Those are our three categories. So what I'm listening here, Ale say, this is for all the builders listening, is basically, hey, we've built all the complex stuff, all the backend, all the complex things on how to do these interactions. Now we're just starting to focus more on the end user and to make this in a good user experience to do the actions that they need to perform, right? So if you're a fast builder and if you learn fast, you can come here, check out the docs, build your own front end for that, and the things that you think the users may need or what you see around. And you could even do it faster than them on the front end side for the user and have a very powerful app that's leveraging all the work that they've done in the past year and a half. And yeah, just leverage that tool to gain great user experience in DeFi for users. That's what I'm hearing here.
Yeah, that's it. Even the front end, we abstracted and take also the load from them, the security and the execution of the transaction. So what they focus on is maintaining, building the structure of an automation, right, of what it should do, and maintaining this and making sure it triggers on time, but then making sure the transaction goes through the right gas management, the right RPC, the security of the user funds, everything remains on the user smart account. So the user really doesn't have a lot of risk because they keep the approval from their smart account, don't deposit their funds anywhere, and the automator can instruct, transaction on that sub account that was designated for this automation by the user. Again, Brahma doesn't subscribe on behalf of the user. The user does with their keys that own the smart account by signature. So that's the logic.
Love it. That's
Rahul will go
awesome.
deep down
Well,
on that.
yes, Raul, I'm bringing you to stage now. Hey, man.
Hey, hey.
We're excited to see what you have for us. So please,
Sure.
thank you, Ale, for that presentation. That was a very comprehensive breakdown of console. So that's great to see. And here we go. We can see your screen now. Thank you, Ale.
Yep.
I'm taking you off stage as well.
Cool.
There we go.
So,
All yours, Raul. Yep.
yep. So, picking up from where Ali left, like till now we have been building on top of these sub account stack and all of these automation stacks wherein we were in-house building these automations which helped you achieve simple strategies or even more complex strategies like DPEC protection, TWAPs, DCAs. But now we are opening this strategy and this whole infra part to the users where the devs can actually leverage this stack that we have built over the time and where the things that we have abstracted over the time, and they can just focus on building very simple and even very complex automated environments which are quite hard to build right now as like if you just try to build it from scratch, right? So I'll just show you a quick in-house POC that we did a few days back, which basically it's like a simple refueling network wherein uh, you just park some gas into one chain onto one chain, and then the automation kind of picks up the gas and keeps refilling it on different networks. Now I'll just walk you through the demo once and then we'll go over the code a bit. And that is where I want to show you the level of abstraction that console offers via the API to a dev and how simple it makes to run like automated scripts or automated executions on like this guarded account, right? So now let's say we have this sub account. I'll try to automate it. So here is this executor, or let's say this entity which is going to run automation on my console, and I can see that, oh, this is the address and this is like the key which is going to be sending transactions on my behalf. Now the thing is that by selecting or giving access to this specific executor, I'm delegating the control of my assets. Now when I'm delegating, it's a very controlled environment because first the funds are being isolated into a sub account. So the main console or the I as an owner have full access over it, but the person who is running or the key which is running or managing this account has very limited access and can only do things which it is instructed to do. So now let's say I open up my automation. Now the first thing that I see here is something called as whitelisted addresses. Now this basically instructs that this specific executor or the person who I'm delegating to can only transfer my funds to this address. It cannot transfer the funds to any other addresses, which we'll see later in the example. But this is where the close guarding and the protection of the sub account comes in. So if I try to open up this address on AppScan, I'll eventually see that this is a socket gateway. So I'm the intent of the executor is to bridge. Okay, so this sounds fair to me. And then the executor or the delegate is asking me to deposit some gas or the token into this sub account. So I'm just going to go ahead and deposit a small amount. And now there is this another level of granular restrictions which I can place, that even though I'm depositing this much amount of capital per execution or per iteration, uh, this executor can only take a certain bit of, or let's say a certain chunk of amount. So that wouldn't allow the executor, let's say in case the third party goes malicious, you as a user are still protected because you are placing these limits such as whitelisting the addresses you're going on and the execution amount limits. Now once I'm done filling these like simple details, what I'll do, oh by the way, I'll just start my uh, executor as well, which is like a simple script which just keeps on pulling for the balances. And the moment it sees some subscription, it will try to do or execute the automation on its own, right? Now let's say now let's give some metadata or some more context to the executor which is executing. So I want to say that, oh, I want to refuel this much amount of ETH, which is like 0.001 ETH, and just check if the balance is less than this amount, min amount, and I want to refuel it on, let's say, mode network. So even though my my funds are parked on say funds are parked on ARB, it doesn't matter because console in itself is from day one a multi-chain experience, and it doesn't, and the API also exposes it from that point of view itself. So you as a developer, you don't have to worry at all about, oh, which chain is it deployed on, where it can run. It's all multi-chain from day one. And then this is, let's say, the address which I'm trying to refuel. So if I just quickly open up this address on mode scan, I'll see that it has like 16 cents and not a lot. So probably it will need refueling. So, okay, once I'm done filling up everything, I'm happy, I'm ready. And now I'm just going to delegate my funds and everything to the executor. Now I can just simulate before sending the transaction. Okay, I see what balances are going out, looks correct. I'll just go and sign this transaction. Now, as soon as I sign this transaction, I go back to my executor script. Ideally, it should pick up subscription as soon as the transaction gets relayed. So the transaction is getting relayed, transaction is relayed, my execution script picks up, checks the current balance, gives me a code that it is trying to transfer 0.001, creates a code. Now, ideally, it sent it to the console network, and there the transaction is done, and the intent to refuel has been given out. Now, it just took literally few seconds. Now, and if I just go and open up my sub account, I'll just open up this sub account, and if I see my internal transactions, I'll see, oh, there is a intent to refuel. I can just go and open this up on socket scan. I can see what's the status of, let's say, the bridging intent. Oh, it's already done. And if I just go and refresh my EOA on mode, ideally it should be here. I have my $3 back on mode. Now, let's say this automation keeps running, and now what I do is, let's run a quick test. I'll drain my wallet again, but this time, let's say we try to make the executor, or let's say the script, malicious. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go here in my script, and I'll just add rug address to true, simple variable if you want to rug, and I'll just restart my script. So, oh, before starting, I'll just drain up my wallet. I'll just make it look like that I don't have funds anymore. Just send it. I'll just send max amount of ETH. So that goes. I'll just make it small enough. Oh, let's send. Yeah, 1 more minute. Send account one. Max ETH out. And let's say I want to transfer everything out. Okay, so I think my wallet is
While we wait for that transaction,
yeah,
I'm impressed and having fun watching you just go back and forth from the script and the UI and stuff. So this is great. You can be coding on your IDE, a strategy, and all the
exactly.
steps, and manage all those steps programmatically, and you don't have to do anything else, right? Like that's it.
Exactly. That's the whole point. The level of abstraction is the goal. At the end of the day, the goal is to make it easier for the devs to focus on what they actually want to build, rather than figuring out, oh, how do I relay it? Oh, how do I check for subscription? How do I poll and stuff? So that is what we abstract, and that is what we have built, that we have learned building console all this while, right? So we faced difficulties, we fixed, we automated, we scaled. Now the point is, we want to devs to just focus on the core stuff. Okay, so let's get back
Love
to the
it.
demo. Our wallet is empty now, and my script is ready to rug the user. So basically, if I just set this variable true, what it'll try to do is, it'll just try to take all of the money in the sub account to its own address, and it won't even bridge it to you. Now, let's say I go back to the script. I run my script again. Okay, happy and good. Subscription found. Balance checking. And right now it's trying to rug. So it's trying to send to its own address, and it is checking out the value. It's not even bridging. But now, as you see, the console policy stack just throws an error saying, oh, you are violating the policy. So that is where the whole protected environment, or the gated environment comes in, wherein the user can see what access they are delegating exactly. And even though I, as an executor, go malicious, I cannot do a lot of stuff wrong, as long as I can ensure that the access and the permissions that I'm giving to this third party executor is valid and are like known by me. So these kind of, so this is where we strike the unique balance between, oh, how do you build or ship automations or like at speed, and how do you protect the user while not delegating everything to the EOA. Now if I had to give you example, like most of the automations are like, oh, just deposit the money into this vault or this pot wherein we manage the automation and you just trust them. The point is with sub accounts, with the whole console stack, the level of trust is not at all needed. You are just giving the minimal, you have the custody of the assets, you're giving just the exact amount of required delegation that is needed to the executor, and at the end of the day, the person who is executing, he has like the exact amount of access. He knows what exactly to run. You know, as a console owner, that this is what he's going to run, and then there sits this policy on top of it, which is protecting and guarding all the automated executions which are taking place. So this is how, and if I just walk you through the script is literally like three big functions. You just fetch your executor, you just fetch your subscriptions, and then there is just one function. You just sign and send a task. You don't have to worry about relaying, you don't have to worry about gas, you don't have to worry about what chain it is being relayed on. Just build the call data, send it to us, the policy validates it, and that's where it ends. That is the level of abstraction that we are offering from our API, and I believe this is one of the most easiest way to even build an automation on chain at this point. And on top of that, if you give the feasibility of, oh, you can also protect your environment, you can limit everything, this strikes in a good balance for like the user and the person or the devs who are automating. So very soon we'll be opening up our API docs to the for the devs to build on all as well. And for example, the let's say if I think we can talk a bit more about what kind of things we can build on top of this whole automation infra, because like refueling is just not the limit to what can be built. And I think we would speak more about like what we are looking forward for the devs to build and what can be done with this API. And I think Ale can take over a bit and he can explain more on what we are focusing or aiming towards with this whole API stack that we are
Yeah,
offering.
I do have a question before I
Sure.
bring Ale again.
Yes.
So, because I wanna highlight what you showed, because you
Sure.
tried to rug the user, right? You
Exactly.
you try you tried to do it, but
Exactly.
but console didn't let you do it, right?
No, it didn't.
So yeah, I think that's important. So I would like to understand how,
Sure.
when does the user set those like configurations? Like when is the user deciding, okay, this is my limit. I want like this to happen, but not this.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
So let me just cancel my existing running automation, right?
yeah,
And I'll show you the initialization step again, so that you can see where exactly the user is delegating the access, right? Now this UI which I'm showing you, it's a bit different from what so we have this whole policy stack wherein, oh, you can go see policies and set this granular limits from the UI itself. So this UI itself offers you, oh, you can enable global policy, you can add token restrictions, you can allow the addresses which are being restricted, and this comes bundled with the sub account stack. Now the way I just ensured that the executor or the automator is putting in the right policies, I showed whitelisted addresses. So basically this is the
yep,
address at which the executor is only allowed to move funds to. He cannot move funds to any other address. So let's say this address points to the socket gateway, but on my call data, I tried to call my own EOA and transfer the whole value out of it. So this is where the mismatch happens or the violation happens, right? Now another thing I can show you is like if there is like a deposit amount, and I did set limits earlier as well. Now if I try to withdraw more than the given limit that the user gave in one execution, it would still stop me. So you have multiple levels of granularity on which you can exactly restrict where the executor or even let's say the operator on your sub account is trying to perform. And those can be, we have policy restrictions even up to protocol level. So you can even set up restrictions. If a user is trying to interact with Uniswap, you can exactly instruct, oh, you should use these tokens, you should swap out to these tokens, and this is the amount that you should use. So it's not just about some
I love that.
addresses, some
You,
tokens.
you know, we've been talking a lot on mode and with projects and new DeFi experiences about this set and forget thing of like, hey,
Yes,
we need to stop this idea of like you need to be checking your positions and the things that are happening like every minute on DeFi or whatever you're doing. So I love that this is a way of not only security for the user, but also be like, hey, I already know I have my rules set up for this protocol that I'm going to use, and I have a manager and we have all these structures set up. But I know that my wallet will not be spending more than X amount, or my wallet will not be performing these types of actions. So I think this helps a lot with that anxiety of like, oh, I forgot that I have this open, or I forgot I'm in this position, which is great. Oh, do you want to show us some as protocol specific rules? That would be great.
exactly. So no, I was
Yeah,
just showing you like the amount of protocols that we already have integrated to work with policy. We have Aave,
nice.
Cowsop, Pendle, 1inch, and we're just expanding this list day by day. So this is so the at the end of the day, the goal is to let the user express the intent. The policies save you, the automations make executing it easier, and that's where you strike the perfect balance, right? Running automations is scary because you're delegating access of almost all of your funds. If you don't delegate access, you are stuck with like a very manual execution mode wherein you as
Yeah.
fund, you are like very manually doing multiple signatures, and it's
Hmm.
essentially a slow process which you don't need or you don't want in this era of blockchains that we're
I
living.
I don't want
Exactly.
it. I always tell people I'm a lazy DeFi user. I want DeFi to be easier. I don't want to be clicking in 15 different places and approving different stuff and just making some leaps of faith because I don't know what I'm signing sometimes. So this is great. I think it helps a lot
Exactly.
with the whole objective of mode and what we should bring for DeFi in the future. That is here right now. Um, I'm gonna ask maybe Ale to hop in. I'll bring you on stage, Ale, if that's fine, so we can have a conversation, the three of us. Here we go. Because I do have a few questions as well. And the first one is, you showed that you're integrating a lot of protocols. You had Uniswap, Matcha, a few others. If the community is eager to have another project added, or if I'm a DeFi project that wants to get integrated with you guys, how should I approach you? What's the process? Yeah,
So we don't gatekeep integrations by itself, correct? So using a new protocol or mode that comes up, this doesn't require any integration from Brahma, right? You can load up the dApp by just putting the URL, or you can use Wallet Connect even. Um, the integration was that Rahul showed was only for the policies, okay? Because policies are by itself complex to express, because an intent of a policy corresponds to maybe 5 functions on a contract, correct? And a general
yeah,
user wouldn't know how to express it. But in the policy section, there is also a custom contract section. So let's say you're a user or mode or a whale or whoever, and you want to do a sub account with a new protocol that came out yesterday, you can put the contract of the protocol on the custom contract. The only difference is that by using a policy map by Brahma, which it requires, like, we can't let anybody map for other users because it requires some level of diligence, correct? But if you map something, it's really easy. So I can show you one sec what Rahul was showing. If you see my screen, can you bring my screen up, Fede?
yeah, there we go.
All right. I was just saying, okay, let's say you have a new contract on mode that we have never mapped, we have never seen at Brahma. You can just paste the contract address here. You can even save it inside of your address book, and you can literally just click and apply a policy to this contract and say, okay, this contract can be used only with certain tokens, right? You can select any asset with a token contract. Or if you use the map protocol by Brahma, the benefit is we actually express the intent in actual words, right? So you can literally say on this sub account, the person I want can only supply and withdraw, or can only borrow and repay Aave. Or on, for example, Uniswap, they can swap on Uniswap, but they cannot LP, correct? So this swap NLP, this is the mapping that Brahma does custom, and basically we do it based on users' demand. But what Rahul explained on the automation is that the automations are using this permission and policy structure in the background, but they don't require the manual input from the user. The user only has to input. I'll give you an example, right? The user only, in the case of a TWAP, right? The user only has to input the parameters that are given by the automator. So let's say I want to buy $200 of Pendle over the next 12 days and in 12 orders, right? Once a day, or just in 2 orders, right? Every week almost. This is what I input as a user, okay? And I can even put a minimum execution price. Once I start the automation, this is a single transaction that it creates an automation sub-account. It creates the policy based on what you selected, correct? Where can this automation be executed? Where can the swap go? What is the input token? What's the output token? And the limit of tokens to be put in this sub-account for the third party to automate it. Everything is abstracted away for the user, correct? The policy structure I showed you before with the inputs, the manual UI, that's for more professional users that want to custom tailor sub-accounts with certain policies. That's
awesome.
why I told you can build more retail-friendly experiences in the future, correct? Because the devs can build whatever they want. The user can input the parameter they want to restrict. And in the middle, there's no trust between them. The trust is abstracted from Console's policy service that will check and make sure that the automator is not malicious, and the funds always stay inside of the user's control in their sub-account. So they can always stop an automation 24/7. And you could not do this without smart accounts, correct? Like a MetaMask, a Rabbik cannot run this. It cannot run a batch transaction. It cannot basically enable automated execution. That's why in DeFi, so far, everything was done with vaults, Yearn style or Beefy style vaults, which is a good approach for like socializing gas for mainnet. But when you have very cheap gas and each user would want to use their parameters, correct? Your TWAP will be different than mine, correct? You want a different frequency, a different token. Why do you put everybody in one contract? And also there's a honeypot risk. Ideally, you let the user keep full control so that if they think the automator is doing something fishy, or maybe they don't rebalance like they set the position, you just go and cut the automation. And in Brahma, we have we basically have a very easy way to manage the automation. It's not complex at all. Like you can basically 24/7 just look at your automation, the info of the automation, and stop it in one click. So that's the kind of control we want to leave to the user.
That is great, especially of this set and forget mindset, but also why are we in DeFi? Why do we love decentralized finance? It's not because we're just here doing like random stuff. It's because, at least for me, I'm a developer. I love programming stuff. I would love automation. I would enjoy just getting into my home and the lights turning on and everything being automatic, right? That's what I want for my finances as well. So I'm done with like just going to my bank account, transfer to this other place, to Robinhood, whatever app you have, just buying your stocks, remembering everything, Excel spreadsheets everywhere. I'm tired of just like Notions and stuff. So if we can start automating all of that and be like, hey, I have this safe account where I just send some money that I want to invest in DeFi, I'll send it and automatically it will auto invest in these things that I've been already setting up. That is super interesting, and it brings a lot of new things that we like. That improves your finances as well. It will help people to be more optimal with it, be more safe with it. And as you said, it's not that we're pulling all our money together in one place. I'm just using my own accounts and setting up that automation.
Yes, that's the guarantee we want to leave, correct? Like the value transfer and the decentralized nature, at least, of accessing a product on chain should not be taken away from us, even though we provide, I'll give an example, the interface, right? The UI. If our UI is down, it would be harder for you to use your safe and execute with it, but you still have the full recourse that without your keys owning that smart account signing the transaction, nobody can take you out of the position or can keep your money, essentially. So that even every smart contract can have some logic where essentially a manager can have certain control or veto over things, right? Or time logs. Here, like it's your account that started that transaction. So that's the guarantee we want to always keep. Then the more UX you abstract, the more layers of, let's say, small centralization on services there is, right? That is the same with using RPCs or using certain providers for different things. But we want to ensure that like your position is open from your smart account to the end protocol, Aave, Ironclad, whoever it is, without console being a proxy in the middle that can take your money ever, right? That's why we don't take signature rights. We never sign for the user. If you choose an automation third party, you subscribe to them we are in the middle to help you set your permission and be able to run these transactions that the automator says they want to run for you, and making sure that they cannot change the logic after the fact, correct? Once the user signs something, it is basically hashed on chain, and this parameter cannot change without a signature from the user, closing the automation, increasing the amount, decreasing the amount. The more UX you need, the more kind of layers you need to build that work together to make sure that using the protocols and the things it's not super hard. So that's what we do, right? Like the 10 transaction to open a position should become one. The connection to DApp should not feel like, oh my God, every time it can break or there can be a security issue. So obviously we curate the list of dApps that you can search, and then you can always input whatever dApp you want and connect to any non-verified dApp. We just try to make it easy to, not get rugged, simulate the transaction, and all of that.
And what you mentioned about decentralization and security and having to build a lot of layers, that's literally what building in Web3 is, and like trying to decentralize all these services. There's always pros and cons to decentralizing as much as you can, right? And sometimes we don't need 100% decentralization in everything. We need trust in a few places. We need to reduce trust. We can minimize that as much as we can. That's it. We don't need to have everything decentralized, but we do need to have the user's money. If it's not in their control, then you already have a big problem. That is a big problem, right? Having just connected with a run, as you said, you're curating the protocols that you're connecting to and trying to help with security and all of these things. That is important as well, because having all these security measures just end up with a better experience for the user. So I'm glad. I'm happy with all the things that I'm hearing from you guys. I feel the team is aligned with all the values in Web3 as well, and I hope to see some builders leveraging all of these to create amazing experiences for users. That's what I want to see.
That's what we're discussing, right? That was what I wanted to just point out. So we're just releasing the API now for it, like beta use from certain developers that we have worked with or already are in touch with, and we're basically getting more and more inbound and deciding which are the first automator that should be on the platform, because obviously there's a risk there as well, right? If we allow you to list your automation in console, we're endorsing you that at least you're passing the right call data to the user. Then they can simulate it, they can read the simulation, but we want to curate the beginning especially a lot. So I just give an example or some examples of the automation request that came through from builders that said, hey, I want to come and build this. So one that is very interesting is building automation for Gnosis Pay or for basically cards, Web3 cards. So let's say you have balance on your Gnosis Pay and you want to borrow against it a certain token without selling your ETH, or you want to earn yield on your line USDC that you're not using on the card. This can be done and built fully with console without any external third party required, right? So that's an example of something that is being cooking in the background. Then we have some protocol DAOs that want to manage their own protocol liquidity without using an automated vault manager, like a smart contract that they deposit in. And so again, like they create a sub account and they run an automation themselves as a team to rebalance the ranges on concentrated liquidity for their token. So this way, the DAO treasury keeps full control of the tokens. There's never a risk, and they can kind of automate the management over time instead of having to multi-sign every time. Then we have spoken to various security providers that would like to provide this rug protection automation, where whenever they see something, let's say fishy going on with a contract you have a position on, you could kind of set the auto withdrawal permission where they can only withdraw you from the position. Your biggest risk is that they withdraw you at the wrong time, meaning nothing happened, and you spend some gas, which was a concern on mainnet. But on somewhere like mode, it's not a concern, right? Worst case, you exit the position. And the second complexity is slippage. So that's another example where Console can help the developer not think of that. Because the user would say, I want to auto withdraw if the provider security says, hey, this is risky, auto withdraw, but maximum I want 0.5% slippage. Again, the slippage logic, the execution logic is handled by Console. So the developer doesn't have to do all the simulation for checking what the actual slippage would look like. We do it for them. They only need to say, hey, now you should get out. And then Console's logic will look at the permission, the execution logic, meaning slippage, RPC, gas management, and push it through. These are just some examples. There can be 50 more. Another one is that essentially auto allocate your lying collateral in your account. Let's say you have USDC and you want to auto balance it every week between 2 or 3 lending markets based on the best yield, but you will say which lending markets you trust, correct? Maybe I only trust 1 and 2. I don't trust the other 4. And then it's only between this 1 and 2, but automatically it would go into the yield position and be managed by an automator, meaning if it's risky, get out. If the APY changes, balance it. And all of this without depositing into a smart contract that has extra levels of, let's say, proxy risk. Yeah, and the last part would be that we're building towards this cross-chain. I mean, what the demo of Raul already was cross-chain, correct? Refueling a mode wallet from an Arbitrum wallet, all abstracted. So where we're going to is like, if you wanted to actually have cross-chain yield with this USDC, and you trust Aave on 3 chains plus, Ionic and Ironclad, you could say, if the gas doesn't exceed X%, or if it's profitable, rebalance every 2 weeks with my USDC between the farms, right? And the automator could run the logic. Again, the automator can be a quant developer or a data scientist or a full stack dev that maintains the scripts that check the APY on a programmatic basis. And they just need to say, okay, call data 1 to exit from here, enter here, trigger it now. And Console takes care of everything else, right? So this is some example, but I'm sure you can imagine another 10. But it's very broad. It's not like
these are great. These are great. Like, I think it shows the modularity, I would say, or like the easiness of like how the problem now is solving the problem. Like, it's not just, as Raul said, which I love, usually abstracting these things brings peace of mind for the developer, because they just need to focus on how do I build this strategy? I don't need to focus on the slippage, on this certain protocol, on these little details that we find around in Web3, which is always the same thing. You start with a little thing, and then you have to build a whole system for it because nobody else did it, right? So I see the value in this for builders to actually be, this is useful, even for, I'm even thinking about farmers, right? Like people that just love going to new protocols and automating all of this stuff and managing different wallets and whatever. Well, this is actually a great tool for that. So now we're bringing and lowering the barriers for people that want to automate their strategies. And when you mentioned about the DAOs and all these treasuries just agreeing with each other and setting up the rules, it's kind of a consensus mechanism for DeFi, right? So
you have, because if
you all set up these rules, if
you have a safe which is 7 out of 15 as a DAO, unless those 7 people sign for the automation with the parameters, correct? It's a multi-sig transaction to start an automation, set the policy, spin up a sub account. So again, the consensus of giving some permission, it's all on chain. It's not like Brahma can sign on your behalf because everything is done by the key. And why we call it integrated account, which we're still kind of pushing and explaining, but what you said, modular, right? The thing is, in a modular world, there's all the pieces that can be combined to work in a way, correct? There's a lot of different standards, a lot of different options, and it's a bit hard from a developer standpoint, and Rahul should talk about it. But the point that we say integrated means that you take all the piece of the stack with the UI part, which is also very hard to build and maintain, and you piece it together so that you have one integrated stack to program, transaction and value cross-chain. And then the builders can contribute to it, and the only big issue becomes curation at this point. How do we make sure that we scale the automation in a safe way that no bad automation enter the system, that people mindlessly would subscribe to them? So curation is important, where we don't want 100 automations a week to come up and not be checked. And how do we do it in a fair way? So
Totally. That's where I think, this is personal opinion, that's where I think AI is going to help us a lot with curating and analyzing the risk and stuff like this, which is not easy at all. And I don't even know how we'll do it as an industry. But as you said, curation is a big problem in Web3 in general because of the risk of smart contracts and stuff. So if you're going to be exposing yourself to new risks and new protocols, you need to know that, and you need to know how much risk you're taking there. So yeah. Not an easy problem to solve, but it is solvable, and I hope we'll figure it out. Well, I think I'm done. Anything else you would like to add? This was like super comprehensive, and I'm excited to see future builders and new use cases for this, to be honest. I want to see what people build.
We're at the early stage. So as Rahul said, we're releasing this kind of beta, like closed release, pretty much like this and next week for the devs that we mentioned. And we would like to, you guys are doing the hackathon and kind of collecting and seeing who are the right players for Mode to build automation on. We would like to then go deeper and do a session or anything and share docs. It would be open, but as I said, like it would be great to be in touch with the builders, help them. Rahul can run them through the stack, and we can then start with some POCs also on Mode. First, we had this like request on Arbitrum, like the use case I mentioned. So it would be great to find like 1 or 2 unique automation that devs want to build on Mode and kind of steward them with them and help out. So this over the next week sounds very feasible.
For sure. I have a few ideas already. Awesome. Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Ale. Thank you, Raul, for being here, for explaining all of this. It was super, super interesting. And yeah, just happy to have you here. Hope if you ever develop something even cooler and you keep building and adding stuff, we can do another of these workshops, because yeah, I just wanna keep up to date with the news from Brahma. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and yeah, just see you in the next one. Bye everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye guys.
Bye.